Hello. This week I'm set up to start painting my Fallschirmjagers, and this is like my normal setup and I'm painting them. I'm no expert painter. As I've said before, I don't worry about it. There's always going to be somebody better than you out there. I just do the best I can, really. And when it comes to following, guides for the uniforms, what I've done is I've just printed off a series of photographs from the internet, really. This one of a real uniform from a museum, some more real uniforms, and then some book illustrations that kind of show me it all together, and I can refer to these and make my best judgment on the colours, because I used to follow a lot of the guides on the internet, but because we're all using different paints, it's sometimes quite difficult to kind of, they'll say one colour and you haven't got that one, so where do you start? Do you start buying another set of paints? So I just tend to go with the colours that look right, based on my internet research now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by looking at the camo pattern. Right, I'm going to move on to the next one now. Right, so for the next colour, I'm going to go with Army Painter's Green Skin. Right. Right, I'm just going to put a couple more bits on it. Right, I'm going to try this drizzle pattern now. Can you see that? It's going to look a lot more subtle once I've put the wash on it, but I'm thinking that might work. It's just a question of getting a bit of the thick of it off on a piece of paper towel or something before you brush it over it. Right, so the next colour I'm going to be doing is the Field Grey Army Painter, and I'm going to use that for the trousers, and any that are carrying the rolled up blanket, I'll do that in the same colour. I'm not sure many of mine have, but where I have, I'll be painting that. It's not looking a lot different at the minute. Right, as normal, I'm going to crack on with the rest now, and I'll bring you back at the next stage. Right, so the next colour I'm going to be using is Leather Brown by Army Painter, and I'm going to use that on the water flask and also on the straps, the chin straps from the helmet. I'm doing this bit next because I'm then going to be doing the all the dark areas, including the latch and lid to this, so it makes sense to do this first. Right, so I'm now going to be moving on to using some Banshee Brown by Army Painter. And what I'm going to be painting is these satchels, ammo pouches, well, all the ammo, all the different ammo pouches really. Obviously it's going to look a little bit too lively at the moment, but when you do add those washes, that's what's going to make the difference and bring it all together. Right, I'm going to crack on again through the rest of them and then I'll bring you back. Right, the next colour that I'm going to be using by Army Painter is Necromancer Cloak. And I'm going to be using this in several places. I'm going to use it on the boots, any belts, the straps on the blanket roll, the gun itself. So it's probably the most detailed colour that we're going to be putting down. And then obviously I'll be applying a wash in various places afterwards. But as you know, I'm leaving the washes to the end. So on this one I'm going to start with the boots. So that's picked out all these boots, the water bottle clip, all these back straps, and the gun itself. Right, I'll crack on and get the rest done. Let Mr. Bob in. Right, so on this next sweep, what I'm going to focus on is I'm going to be using the fur brown on rifles, you know, on the actual wooden part, and any tips like that. I'm also going to be using some oak brown from Army Painter on any other additional satchels that I've not painted. So I'm going to try and do the two in one sweep on this one. Right, I'm going to go through the rest of them again as before, and then I'll bring you back. Right, so I think this is where the figures really start to come to life, because I'm going to be adding the first skin tone, and I'm using Tanned Flesh by Army Painter. Keeping the paint thin is really important. It helps with the flowing into where you want it to go, because, you know, trying to drag it in with your brush, you can get paint where you don't want it. That's him looking more alive now. Right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to crack on and go through the rest of them, and as usual, when I've done that, I'll bring you back. So on this next section, I'm going to focus on doing a combination of colours really. I've picked out all of the men that have got peak caps, or, you know, the little caps, because I want to be using some, I'm going to use Vallejo Luftwaffe uniform to paint those. But obviously on, say, the peak caps, as you can see on this one, there's a band of black that I need to go over beneath it. Then I'll be adding the blue, and then finally I'll have to pick out the details in white. I've done the actual peak already, so with these I just need to be adding the Luftwaffe blue at this stage. Right, so now that's dried, I've come to just touch the detailed parts. Now you see that I've just caught those flecks of white, but I also noticed there was a small central piece that should be red, and that's it. I don't know whether you can see that. It's very small. The other thing that I've noticed is you get a little bit of their uniform from underneath showing, so I've gone through these ones painting that in the Luftwaffe blue. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to go through all the other men and see if any of their tunics are showing. So the next colour that I'm going to block in is some of these equipment items. So the mortar, some of the ammunition boxes, Panzerfaust, and I'm basically using Army Painter Desert Yellow. Reasonably happy with that. As I say, when it's had a bit of a wash, it'll pick out all the details a bit more as well. Right, so I'm just going to go through now, as I say, and pick out all of the bits like that, Panzerfaust and stuff, and then I'll bring you back. Right, another one of the little bits I'm having to pick out now is the ammunition belts, and I'm using some Vallejo brass. It looks a bit bright when you first put it on. It does settle down a little bit, but the thing is I'm going to be going over it with a wash, and that brings it back to something like what you want it to look like. Right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to apply some Army Painter Kobold Skin. What I want this for is to apply some highlights to the skin. It is as well on the edge. Right. And that's basically what I'm now going to do to each of the following ones. Just highlight those parts that might catch the light. Just to give a bit more definition to the hands and the face. Right, I'm going to get the rest of those done now to the same level as him, and then we'll move on. Right, the next stage that I'm going to do is I'm going to start applying the washes now, and for this I'm using some, I'm going to do the trousers and blanket roll, anything that's the field grey that I used. I'm going to use Army Painter Dark Tone Wash, but I'm going to mix it equally with Quick Shade Wash Mixing Medium, and that just thins it right down so it's not too overwhelming, and this will help to darken these trousers down and pick out some of the definition in them as well. Say on the blanket roll as well. Right, so the next one, I'm using Army Painter Strong Tone Wash, again equal parts with the mixing medium, and what I'm doing with this one is I'm basically painting over all of the kit and the top and the butts of the rifles. This is why I've left it to the end really, it just makes it so much easier. I know it's not for everybody doing it this way, but it's just the way I've started preferring it. If it pulls too much in any of the places, you can just brush it around. But with having this medium in it, it tends to be a fairly good mix. And it's not too overpowering. Just make sure you get all of the areas, including any of these underneath bits, otherwise it's going to stand out from the rest of it. And if it's got a camo helmet on, give that a daub as well. So what I've been doing now is I'm just going round with some gunmetal and touching up the belt buckle, any little holster or buckle, I'm just giving it a slight dab, and then also on his back straps at the central point as well. And then the other thing that I've been doing at the same time is any that have got a little bit of hair peeping out the back, I've been colouring those in as well, you know, with a mixture of brown and black. Right, I think one of the washes that makes the biggest difference is to the skin, and what I'm using is some flesh wash, but again I'm mixing it equally with the wash mixing medium, you know, so it's not too overpowering. You can see that it's just starting to pull into the eyes, and I'll do another one. Try and pick someone with an exposed face that you can see a bit better. Can you see that one? Brings out the fingers really well. So all I'm doing now is a bit of a lazy way of highlighting really, and I'm just giving it a bit of a dry brush, but I'm only focusing on areas that would really catch it out really, you know, like the gun, some of the creases in his trousers. Now whether you can see those, they're just popping out a bit now. like I say, I've barely got any paint on this at all, and it's just basically I've got a little bit of the what's it called, spaceship exterior by Army paint, but I'm also putting a bit of a lighter green to catch these as well. As I say, I'm not doing anything major, just something to catch the odd glimmer. And that'll do for me. At the end of the day, it's about, you know, as long as they look the part, I can get them on the table and they're recognisable for what they're meant to be. That's good enough for me. Well, it is now anyway, with my eyes being how they are. Right, I'm going to crack on through the rest of them and then I'll bring you back when they're all done. Right, so as you can see, I've added all the finishing painting touches and the highlights to all of them now. I'll just pick one up at random. Look at him. See, everything's I've got down all my different colours now. And so really the next stage is to start basing these up. And I'm going to keep them relatively simple. So let me get that set up now. And then I'll bring you back and I can show you what I'm going to do with them. Right, so what I'm doing is I've tipped a little bit of my glue out and then I'm pushing it all around this base, so I've got control over it, because obviously I don't want the glue going up onto the figures. I just want it on the base itself. And this I can make sure I can get it, you know, in all the places that I ain't going to be able to get to by just tipping it on. I just thought I'd start on this big one because it's a bit easier for you to see what I'm doing. As I say, I'm not going to do anything, you know, really too fancy on this. I want to keep these relatively simple, so they'll fit in to most of the battle environments I want to use them in. I'll do for a start. So what I've done is I've got some very small stones. I'm just going to scatter a few of them on before I add the grass finish. Right, so that's what I put on. I mean, normally what I would have done is I'd have stuck anything like this down and you know, before I actually painted the soldiers, because I could have made it part of the base. But I was a bit undecided this time about how I was going to go with it, so I've left it till late. But it doesn't matter. I mean, it's still going to work out. And now what I'm using here is some light meadow grass scatter. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it like that for now, and then I'm going to come back when I've done them all and apply some tufts, just to give that a little bit more of a look. Right, let me get the rest of these all done up, and then I'll bring you back. Right, so now that I've added all the scatter, what I'm doing now is I'm just adding the odd tuft. Not going to overdo it, just putting a few on here and there. When it comes down to the smaller ones, I may even go, you know, well, it will be just one, and then on others I might not put any on at all. So I'm going to go through them all now and decide what tufts I'm putting on, and then I'll bring you back for the next stage. Right, so I've added all the tufts, and basically I'm just feeling that it's a little bit too light. So I'm going to introduce a medium green. I'm not going to go wild with this. I'm just going to do a few sprinkles just to break up, you know, the light grass, just to give it a bit more colour. As you can see, it's only a few flecks here and there. And then I'm also adding a few of my dried tea leaves, just to give it, you know, a slight feeling that there's soil and mud there as well that's been kicked up. There we go. Just a tiny bit on the front there as well. So that's looking like that. Just get a bit of light on that for you. Right, I'm going to get all the rest of these done, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a pipette. Have I got it to show you? Yeah, I'm going to use my pipette to just dribble a few little bits of glue on there, watered down glue, but also just to break the surface tension. I shall use some isopropanol so it soaks right through. Right, I'll get that done, and then I'll bring you back and we can have a look at them. Back in a minute. So having sealed the bases, I've decided to put some transfers on these. Not on all of them, just a few. Like the Panzerfaust, I'm putting that one on. And I'm also putting a few rank insignia on my NCOs. I've been reading that the Fallschirmjagers helmets didn't have many emblems on towards the end of the war, so I'm only putting it on a few. With that done, I'm preparing them now to give them a spray of some anti-shine varnish to protect everything we've done. Right, and finally they've been varnished with some matte varnish, and obviously they're thoroughly dried first. So basically I've sorted them out into, as you can see, 8-man squads, and then these ones, that's basically my first lieutenant and 2 men, a medic and a supporting man, sniper and supporting man. This one's going to be a captain with 2 supporting men, forward observer, and then obviously the 2 MMGs and a mortar. So all in all, I think it came out, this is based on veterans obviously, so you can change it, but I think it come out around 1284, I think. Yeah, 1284 altogether. But you could play around with that obviously, depending on what rank you want to give them. So yeah, so that's it complete. It's been quite a long project, very testing on the eyes. So I think I might have a break and do a bit of terrain or something for a while before I commit to the next batch. But yeah, I'll wrap this one up, and I'll share some photos with you to finish this one off. I think on the whole I'm pretty happy with them. It's perhaps not my best work, but I think they'll look the part on the table, and that's the main thing. And as I've said before, I'm not the best of painters, so if you are looking for a more of a professional guide, perhaps better tuning into some of the more well-known channels for that. But this is just, this is average work, and I just want to show you that you can get results that you're pretty pleased with, and that's all you want really, so you can play the game. Anyway, thanks for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please consider giving me a thumbs up or subscribing for future videos. Anyway, I'll wrap this one up, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.